good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. We're gonna finish up chapter 21 today. Okay, we left off. Raymond's ankle is broken, Gabe's knee is all messed up, and they decided to go it alone all the way to Nahanni Butte. Okay, so that's going to be a long trek, and we're going to see if they can make it through in this chapter. We've got one more chapter after this that we will read tomorrow. All right, here we go. Chapter 21. Don't think about how far 100 miles is, I told myself. Don't turn around and look at the cabin. It's probably not even out of sight yet. Don't think about the 100 miles or the snow being soft or how much your load might weigh. Don't think about how much energy you've expended to get a quarter mile. If you do, you'll make yourself crazy. You'll have to admit that Raymond has to be left behind, like he said. Think about the note you left in the cabin for your dad, the one that you signed, going for broke. That's what you have to remember. It's everything or nothing. Give it everything you've got and a whole lot more. Pull like there's no tomorrow, but don't get stupid and make mistakes or there won't be a tomorrow. It's going to take a lot of tomorrows to make it to Nahanni Butte. I rested, panting, taking in the looming gate of the lower canyon. That's the starting gate, I said over my shoulder. I looked up high, maybe 1,000 feet above, where the wind was whipping the snow off the high ledges. It would have made a beautiful postcard, I thought. I would title it The Brutal Beauty of the Nahanni. I pointed up there and said to Raymond, "We sure ain't in Texas." You talk funny, he said. I'm just laying on the accent. I was thinking how Clint promised he was going to give us a sightseeing tour we'd never forget. Raymond snorted. Well, he delivered, I yelled, and I leaned into the rope, lurching the toboggan into motion. That was the hardest part. Now just keep pulling. Don't set your sights way down into the canyon. Set a goal just 100 yards or so ahead at a time. That's plenty. One football field length. One football field, and then the next. The cold seared my windpipe and my lungs. My sweat was falling into my eyes and freezing my eyelashes shut. The pack sack was so heavy, digging into my shoulders, but there wasn't room for everything on the toboggan. So far to go, I thought. I'm starting out a complete wreck. My knee is gimped up, and that's a fact. I just don't want Raymond to know how bad it still is. And then there's my ribs. From when I slipped on the ice and dropped the moose meat, my side is aching again from that. My lips are split open in a couple of places, and so's the palm of my hand, always there, throbbing to remind me. My fingers are a mess, burned in spots, chapped, cracked. Somewhere along the line, frostbite got the tip of my nose and my chin. I can't do that, I told myself angrily. You wouldn't do it before. Don't give in to it now. Think about something else. Think about Raymond. Is he cold? Yes, he's cold. Will he get frostbite not moving around? I hope not. He's wearing your boots. They're warmer than his. He's wearing enough clothes to start a surplus store. He'll be okay. Johnny's parka is over him for a blanket. What about Raymond's foot? Think about that. Think about how bone surgeons can do amazing things, even if they have to re-break some of the bones and fasten everything with pins before they cast it. It'll feel awful good to come out of that operation with a cast on his foot finally, and then to hear he'll get normal use of it back. Maybe Wayne Gretzky won't have to worry about him becoming a hockey star, but he'll be able to do just about anything else, whatever he wants to. Where will he go? Where will he want to do? Words. What will he want to do? What are you going to do? Head back to Texas? What do you think? Head back where it's warm as soon as you can get out of here? Your grandparents will take you back in a heartbeat. Spring in San Antonio? Fiesta! Think about the Battle of the Flowers. What a parade. And the Flambeau night parade with all the torches. Think about squeezing into a few blocks with about 10,000 people at a night in old San Antonio. All those girls with flowers in their hair. Think about the river walk. Taking a girl out to one of those nice restaurants along the river. Think about summer. Think how you could lie there on a real bed with a real mattress, with only your sheet, and you wouldn't even need that. Think about being too hot to sleep, what that feels like. You'll be lying there trying to remember what the cold felt like back up here in the Northwest Territories. Trying to remember the cold, I thought? What are you, crazy? Try to forget. You're doing good, I heard Raymond call from behind me. I stopped in my tracks, turned around, and grinned. I'm going a lot of places in my head, I said. Yeah, me too. I think I'll go to Bermuda next. Or Hawaii. Maybe Tahiti. I finished my bottle of water. Trady bottles, Raymond said. I knew he was right. I needed to keep drinking water. I took his full one and he gave him mine. Take a deep breath. Heave, lean, grunt, pull. You're rolling again. Push off with that left foot. Lift the right snowshoe high. Swing the left arm forward and across to keep your momentum going. Nothing solid down there to push off of, but push anyway. Left snowshoe high. Right arm crossed. Keep believing, I told myself. Just keep pulling. That first open water we'd met after Christmas was all iced over now. Everything looked different. Our hopes soared, but we weren't going to talk about it. The days are longer now, I thought. That's in our favor, too. Toward twilight, I set a goal of reaching a timbered island far down the frozen river. I kept pushing, and we made it. I found a spot protected by the trees. I'd have to use the remaining light to get ready for the night. It was 30 below and dropping. A ragged night coming up. No cabin. You remember what that's like. How far had we come? I don't know. Don't worry about it. I got busy with the axe and cut plenty of the spruce bedding, layered the boughs across each other, finished up with enough tips to make the endless night torture tolerable. Then I helped Raymond out of the toboggan. He didn't think he should lie down right away, and I knew he was right. I cut him a stick to lean on and encouraged him to hop around a little, get his circulation going. Then I grabbed a snowshoe to dig a fire pit in the snow, slashed dead branches for kindling, found my birch bark, coaxed a flame into fire, and nursed it into the living force that would keep us alive through the night. I caught my breath, warmed my hands. Then I took down 3 small dead spruces and dragged them over. Raymond wanted to help, so I had him start melting some snow. I kept the fire blazing, scooped more snow into the pot, built a lean-to, then talked Raymond into lying down. He kept trying to help, but I was afraid he'd fall, and that would make things worse. I could see how tough this was going to be on Raymond, not being able to do hardly anything. I started some water to boil meat, drank some of the hot water I'd already made, and took some to him. You're like a house burning down, Raymond said. Where'd you learn all this stuff? Texas Hill Country. In Texas, it gets a lot colder than here, and the canyons are a lot deeper. There's little animals that look like armored cars? Exactly. In the winter, they just roll themselves up in a ball and freeze solid. What'll it be for dinner tonight? He flashed his bright smile. How about some moose? Good selection. Specialty of the house. I took the axe and hacked out maybe a couple of pounds. After I got the meat boiling, I made some more hot water in a second pot. I knew I was already getting dehydrated, and that would be a big danger as hard as I was pulling. At night, I had to make sure to drink all the water my body could take. With the first sign of twilight in the morning, it was time to convince bone and muscle that I could even get out of the sleeping bag. The pain in my knee was still there. I needed to find more firewood. I needed to get some water going. I needed to get a little more food in my belly, and Raymond's too. I needed to remember before we started out again to fill both of the water bottles full of hot water. At last, it was all done. I packed Raymond into the toboggan, laced up my snowshoes, took my place up front, and stepped inside the rope. I asked Raymond if he'd ever had a dog team. Snowmobiles are better, he said. They go faster, too. He could see I was playing games with my head, just stalling for time. Don't they break down, I asked. Yeah, then you fix them. Once I broke the toboggan loose and started it forward, all my conversations had to take place in my head alone. Imaginary conversations, remembered conversations, conversations with my father, conversations with Raymond, conversations with my coach back in San Antonio. My coach was trying to get me to stay. Lots of compliments. You're hard to knock off your feet, that's what he'd said. I like how you get the extra yards before you get, or even after you get hit. I turned a bend in the canyon and saw up ahead what I'd been dreading most. A black strip of open water snaking its way down the canyon. There was an ice bridge across it, but fortunately we didn't have to try it. There was room to get around the open water on the left. On the third day, a gift came along. Just like the creeks do, the Nahanni had burst its frozen lid and spilled overflow slush for miles, melting the drifted snow that had covered the ice and refreezing it into a surface as hard and as solid as an interstate highway. For a few miles, we went flying around the bends in the canyon. At least that's what it felt like. I pictured it would be like this all the way down to the hot springs at the foot of the canyon. But the free ride ended when the now frozen overflow had encountered a patch of open water. The open water was easy enough to get around, but now I was back to breaking a trail through the snowdrifts. The following day, no more patches of open water. Maybe they were all behind us. Pull, you mule, you donkey, you draft horse, you dog team, you musk ox. Think about the winter bear, the way it laid its ears back right before it charged. It can't hurt you now. Maybe it never came back because Raymond called it a friend and spoke to it in slavey. More likely, it got scared off by the threat about flossing its teeth. Think about the old man finding those beaver hideouts. Now, that was slick. Think about Johnny Raven. Remember his voice, the rivers in his face, the quills in his chin. Think how fond he became of Raymond. Think how much he wanted Raymond and you to live. Think about his hand drum, how Raymond rebuilt it. Think about it right here in your pack sack, going back home with Raymond. Picture your model log house complete with a tiny rock fireplace sitting on the table back at the cabin. How your dad would love to see that model. Try to remember everything about Johnny's letter. Take care of each other. That's what he'd said. My heart skipped a beat when I saw that up ahead at a bend, open water was pushing up against a cliff on the right. But we were able to pull around it once again, on the left side this time. The canyon narrowed. More open water, which was rushing out from under the ice and down to a cliff on the left side. We crossed to the right to avoid it, but the open water, after it hit the cliff on the left, angled back across the canyon, under an ice bridge and to another cliff on the right. It was the exact same situation we'd faced before. This time, the open water was only 30 feet across at the ice bridge. The bridge itself was 15 feet wide. I stood there, imagining my body disappearing under the Nahanni ice. Eventually, it would get hung up on the limbs of a tree pinned in the riverbed, or else it would just keep tumbling all the way to the Arctic Ocean. Raymond broke the silence. You should go across with just a pack sack, with everything you'll need to make it to Nahanni Butte. I asked him, how come is that? In case it breaks behind you. If it holds you, you can do another load and so on until it's just me on the toboggan without any gear. That way we won't have any more weight on the bridge than we have to. And if I don't make it across, I said, if I fall in, like last time, I guess I can't pull you out. Anyway, we can't turn around and go back this time. So if I make it across, but the ice breaks behind me, or if I don't make it and I end up in the river, either case, you're sitting here on a toboggan, and then what? Out of luck, I guess. I thought for a second, but I already knew how I felt. I said, how about we both make it, or we both don't? That's the way it should be. Quick and dirty. You sure? Why not? I looked at the bridge a long time, breathing deep, thinking about what I had to do. This time, I wasn't going to tiptoe and get caught halfway, but I couldn't stomp across either. The bridge might be as fragile as the one before. I was going to try to go as fast as I could, keeping it as smooth as I could. Better to go fast in case something happened. I studied the bridge some more, stalling for time. I said to Raymond, "I've been thinking a lot about Johnny's letter. All the things he said." "Yeah, me too." "I forgot to ask you if you left it in the cabin where it could be found." Raymond tapped his chest. "I've got it right here in my pocket. I wanted to read it at the potlatch." "Then we'll have to make it," I said. "Or what he said is all going to be lost." "We'll make it. I have a feeling we're going to make it." Then Raymond croaked like a raven 2, 3 times. A perfect imitation. The sound carried far in the cold air. "Raven medicine," I said with a smile. We waited then, savoring our friendship, knowing that everything could end in moments. I asked Raymond if he was ready, and he said, "Any time, little brother." I was ready too. Whatever happened, I thought, we'd done our best, and you can't ask for any more than that. "Go!" I started across, pulling hard as I could, trying to go fast without tripping myself up. I saw only the crust on the snow breaking into jigsaw pieces beneath my snowshoes. Right when I got to the far side of the bridge, I heard it crack behind me. I never looked back. I broke into a run with the snowshoe tips high, heaving and exploding with everything I had, and then I felt myself going down. I lunged as far as I could, my face going down in a slab of snow. Behind me, I heard Raymond shouting for joy, and I looked up to see him in the toboggan right behind me. He was pointing downriver where the ice bridge was floating away. I saw blood in the snow where I'd scratched up my face. I couldn't care. I could have cared. I saw I'd broken one of my snowshoe frames. No matter. We still had Raymond's pair in the toboggan. A half hour later, the canyon walls began to dive down toward the river. Downstream, where they tailed into the river, we could see vapor rising from the right bank. "It's the hot springs," Raymond said. There was no open water in the flat country beyond the canyons, only distance to be closed, step by step, between us and that last isolated hogback of the Mackenzie Mountains that Nahanni Butte was named after. The village, Raymond said, sat barely above the river where it touched the foot of that hogback on the right-hand side. In the days to come, I kept my eyes fastened on that mountain. I had to believe it was getting closer because for a long, long time, it didn't seem that way. I was all out of strength. I knew I'd lost track of time, and I lost touch with Raymond, too, as the places I was going in my mind became much more real than the frozen, featureless landscape around me. Toward the end, I thought I was wandering around the streets of Yellowknife. A lady asked me if I wanted to come in for some tea. I realized it was my mother. I said I would sure like that, and she had me sit down at the kitchen table, and she served me rose-hip tea and some chocolate chip cookies. There was a porcupine in the corner of the room that was chewing on the leg of a fancy china hutch. My mother said it didn't matter. It belonged to Johnny Raven. "This is Johnny Raven's house," she explained. "He'll be coming home in a few minutes from work." Then Johnny Raven came in, and he said he was glad to see me. I said, "Boy, am I glad to see you." I'd asked if he'd seen Raymond, and he said Raymond was back in the mountains. I could go find him there. Johnny said he would like me to stay and visit some more, but I said, "No thanks, I better get going if I'm going to catch up with Raymond." I hiked all the way back into the mountains, and I kept calling his name, but he couldn't hear me because the falls were too loud. Then at last I heard him calling my name. "Gabe!" he hollered. "Gabe! Gabe!" My mind jerked back into consciousness. Raymond really was calling my name. I turned around and saw him there in the toboggan. "You fell asleep," he said, standing up. "You've been standing there for a long time." It was twilight. "Look at that fog," I said blankly, and pointed toward a low bluff up ahead. Raymond looked where I was pointing, looked again, and said, That's smoke from everybody's stoves. Stoves? I mumbled. He said, That's the village, Gabe. We're almost there. It got dark on us that last stretch. I remember pulling by the light of the crescent moon. At last, Raymond steered me to the bottom of a 30-foot slope on the right-hand side of the riverbed. Stop, he said. This is it. I don't see anything, I managed to say. It's right up above us, right here. We just can't see it. It was only fog after all, I thought. Not the village. It's right up there, he said again. Smell the wood smoke. I thought I could smell wood smoke, but I knew I must be imagining it. A dog appeared atop the slope, some sort of husky, and broke loose barking. I knew I didn't have enough in me to climb that hill. Much too steep. Maybe after I rested. Maybe we should camp here, I said. The dog kept barking. We heard someone yell at it to shut up. Raymond shouted. Nobody heard. The dog kept barking. At last, a human being appeared up there in the moonlight. A young boy. Who is it? He called, his voice thin and scared. It's Raymond. Who? Jimmy, it's me, Raymond Providence. The boy turned and ran. Raymond said, That's my little cousin Jimmy. We waited, not very long. Within minutes, 80-some people had run out, and they were all standing there on the top of the slope. They must have thought they were seeing ghosts. They weren't saying a word. It's me, Raymond said. It's me, Raymond, and my friend Gabe. A woman shrieked. Everyone came surging down the hill at once. Then they lifted us up and carried us into the village. Oh, they made it. They made it. Yes. We're going to finish this book tomorrow and see how this book completely ends. I'll see you then.